Well, my mum was very interested in Pelmanism. And I recognised my economic history teacher at school who had a poem to help you learn the dates, medieval dates. In 1066 the Conqueror came, and Saxon Harold he was slain. In 1086 the Domesday Book showed William how his accounts should look. And so it went on. I didn't learn it actually, but And I'm reminded of this because my Christian friend came up with the word wait, W-A-I-T, which I've mentioned in an earlier recording. You might want to have a look at that one. Hang on, I'll get the number. Yes, it's S1157. And it's each letter you see helps to remember, why am I talking? So you can It's interesting, the memory is everything, isn't it? If I can't remember what I'm even doing, and I've got a lady of 90 odd, mid-90s, who's getting close to that, she can't remember what we've just done that afternoon. Took her out to tea. Life starts to be utterly isolated, doesn't it? You can't remember all the techniques you have for living. I had another chap who was the husband of a lady at church. He could be getting into the car, into the van, and not remembering whether he's getting in or getting out. So he'd just come to a standstill, not knowing, am I getting in or out of this? We see this as tragic, of course. It takes enormous trust in God, which his wife demonstrates. She's been looking after him, I don't know how long. My father-in-law, my third wife, in India, he's like that. He nursed his mum. She'd been bedridden for I don't know how many years. And really he couldn't communicate with her at all. And he, I thought, wonderfully just carried on looking after her. I said, well, in some sense it was his duty. A sort of blank response to me that, praise and so on is not appropriate. He was a super chap though. Yes. And that's the one when I sang from her hymnal, Seventh-day Adventist hymn book, any of the songs in there that I did know, I could tell she knew what I was doing and was following. I was so pleased, and so were the family. It's one of the lovely achievements of my life. Thank you, Dad. The importance of memory. Do you remember there's a chap who wrote a book, How to Develop Superpowered Memory? Was it Dale Carnegie? I'm not sure. One of those sort of motivation type books, one of the early ones, wasn't it? I seem to remember the technique. I think it was in that book. I'm not certain, but I can't remember. That if you had, he associated numbers with pictures and pictures with great exaggerated scenes to remember this related to that. And you could remember whole strings of numbers and things that way. No, I actually abandoned it quite early on because I thought it would lead me astray in making very unreal associations. Yes, remember I was heavily against the dangers of imagination compared to reality, which I now see from a sort of Steiner point of view as an incredible mistake, that it's imagination that seeds creativity, and it's absolutely vital that our children develop their imagination with fairy stories and make-believe early on. I've sort of done a huge U-turn in that sense. Importance of the memory. I suppose my takeoff academically from very humble type academic position in school, very average or below average, turned on my simple method of remembering what I might need for the test or the exams at the end of term, each term or so. And that was, of course, to write it down in as simple précis form as possible, numbered. Probably there were 6 points, 3 of these and 2 of those, and there's 4 parts to that. That's when it got complicated doing that, but early on I just learnt off the 10 things that I was pretty sure he'd ask, made sure I knew them. A very simple technique of making sure I remembered, if asked, what the right answer is. Yeah. And that was, in a sense, the first step. Down the road, I became a lecturer and senior research officer and all that sort of stuff. Amazing. University, man. My mum and dad would never have foreseen that. Even Mamu, I could do no wrong in mum's eyes. Dad just hoped I'd be a professional sort of person, like a plumber. I think he had plumbing in mind because his uncle, Clem, was a plumber. And of course, that was the guy, come to think of it, I really felt I looked like an amazed grandma by saying so, who thought at the time I'd been adopted. Wasn't born of her genetic line at all, but I was. She tumbled there at that point. Oh, yes, you do look like him, don't you, dear? Suddenly her son's life was revealed. My dad had an affair with premarital relationship with mum. Thank God. Thank God. Thank you, Dad. Love you. Heavenly Dad I was thinking of then. I've never said I love my earthly dad, have I? I was brought up not to love him. It's a shame. In other words, I wash my hands of this. I'm not responsible. But I am responsible now. I love and care for all creatures. I certainly include Dad. My earthly dad. Jesus' story says, call no man on the earth Father. Well, he's not on the earth, he's dead. He's hopefully in glory. So, I can say thank you, Dad, earthly Dad, and thank you, Dad, heavenly Dad. Love you both. You see, the first day of the next week, the Sunday after the Sabbath, the 8th day, when you would be circumcised in a Hebrew context, apparently. And it was the day when the church, according to probably Acts of the Apostles, but New Testament letters and so on, they came together on the 8th day. They ate bread together, they communed, and they worshipped. It's the heavenly day of communion and worship, and in heaven. This is not just a Sabbath meal. On earth, celebrating the 6 days of labour. On the Sabbath, the evening of the Sabbath, you see, that comes first, before the morning. But this is what became in the Christian religion called the Lord's Day, and which it suited, of course, Constantine to choose as the day of rest. Because it was the Sunday, the day of the sun, and he was a sun worshipper. Supposedly become Christian. Solar Invictus on one side of the coin, and the cross that he saw for the Battle of Melbourne Bridge that would give him the victory, apparently, in the sky. On the other side of these coins, he was backing both horses, I think. Either way, his committee, which is euphemistically called the was it the Council of Nicaea, the Nicene Creed? I don't know, whichever one chose Sunday anyway, it was probably possibly dominated by his newly converted pagan priests that were about as converted as himself, I would think, and they chose Sunday as the day of rest, which was not surprising, was it, since they were really at heart sun worshippers. But anyway, do you see? As it happens, I mean, we've got it in the story that they met on the 8th day of the week and communed and worshipped, sang, I think. And so the 8, if you look at the shape of an 8, it's if you join the top and the bottom arms, if you join the top and the bottom arms of an H, you get a sort of square H, square 8 shape. It's one of my things, like 5 and S being rather similar in my sight. But I never confuse capital H's with 8s, mind you. But yeah, heaven. The 8th is the heaven. You've been translated, you're in heaven now. The new heaven and new earth, I suppose, in a way. But you see, the kingdom of God is, it's said to be with man, but as Jesus says in the story to Pilate, my kingdom is not of this world. But the kingdom of heaven's come unto you, you see. Unto us. We are in heaven. We have the kingdom. We're not waiting for Jesus. His return is already for those who have believed on him. Well, that's according to the story anyway. What do you think? What's your take on it? Because that's what really matters to you. Bless you. Thank you, Dad.